All right, let's dive right in. We're going to talk about a word that you've probably heard a million times, a term that really defines our modern world: post-truth. We're going to break down what it actually means and, more importantly, why it matters so much.
You know, it's kind of wild to think that decades ago, the astronomer Carl Sagan gave us this incredibly powerful, almost prophetic warning. And boy, does it hit home today. It just perfectly captures the high stakes of what we're discussing. That line between what feels good to believe and what's actually factually true, it's become dangerously blurry.
So how in the world did we end up here? Well, let's start with the diagnosis. We're going to look at how this term, post-truth, just exploded into our daily lives and even became the Oxford Dictionary's word of the year during a really turbulent time.
And when I say exploded, I mean it. Check this out. In 2016 alone, the use of the word post-truth shot up by 2,000%. Wow. And that wasn't random. Not at all. It was directly fueled by the really intense political climate around the Brexit vote in the UK and the presidential election right here in the US.
So what are we really talking about? Here's the official definition. Let's pull it apart for a second. The absolute key here is this massive power shift. It's not that facts don't exist anymore, of course they do. It's that their influence gets kicked down a notch, a big notch, in favor of gut feelings and what we already believe. It creates this world where how I feel about it can shout louder than what the evidence actually shows.
But you know, this whole idea, it's not brand new. A playwright named Steve Tizich actually used the term way back in 1992. He saw a society that had, in his words, freely decided it wanted to live post-truth. But it took until 2016 for that idea to really catch fire, and now, well, it's a huge part of how we talk about and navigate the world.
Okay, so to really get our heads around post-truth, we have to understand it's more than just people telling lies. It's a way more complex issue, with all sorts of different symptoms. This isn't just about getting something wrong, it's about how and why untruths work in our society today.
And this right here, this is a hugely important difference. Misinformation is, when someone shares something false by accident, an honest mistake. But disinformation, that's a different beast entirely. That's strategic. It's when someone intentionally creates and spreads lies to fool people, to manipulate how we think, or just to create chaos. Post-truth uses both, for sure, but disinformation is its most dangerous weapon. And believe me, post-truth wears a lot of different hats. When you look at what researchers and academics are saying, they describe it as everything from a political strategy to a modern form of propaganda. It's seen as a direct threat to democracy itself, a challenge to experts, and something that just poisons our ability to have a reasonable conversation. It can even be used to prop up really damaging systems of power.
The historian Timothy Snyder really doesn't pull any punches. He says post-truth is pre-fascism. Think about that for a second. He's arguing that when we all just give up on a shared set of facts, we start to chip away at the rule of law. And what rushes in to fill that vacuum? A regime of myth, where powerful stories, whether they're true or not, dictate reality. It's a pretty terrifying warning.
Okay, so let's zoom in a bit and see how this plays out in a really critical place: the classroom. I mean, how does this post-truth climate affect higher education? The very places that are supposed to be all about the pursuit of knowledge.
Well, it creates a huge problem. You see, the whole point of a university is to give students the tools to tell the difference between solid, evidence-based truths and intentional lies. But when that very distinction is being attacked everywhere else in our culture, the classroom suddenly becomes a kind of battleground for reality itself.
And here's what that looks like on the ground. You have educators saying their students are bringing in viral social media clips and treating them with the same weight as peer-reviewed studies. The very idea of an expert is being questioned. That intense political polarization we all feel, it spills into the classroom and makes open debate almost impossible. All of this leads to a general skepticism towards things we used to take for granted, like established science. This whole problem got so bad, especially during the pandemic, that the World Health Organization actually came up with a name for it: an infodemic. It's this overwhelming tsunami of information, some of it good, a lot of it bad, that makes it almost impossible for people to figure out who to trust. And the result is this deep mistrust of institutions and experts across the board. All right, so we've diagnosed the problem. What's the prescription? How do we even begin to fight back? Well, the answer isn't as simple as just screaming fake news at everything we don't like. It's going to take a much deeper, more structured way of thinking.
And that's where something called critical pedagogy comes in. Think of it as the antidote. It goes so much deeper than just fact-checking.
See, it's not just about spotting a lie, it's about understanding the entire ecosystem, the systems of power and knowledge that let that lie travel so far and hit so hard in the first place.
Okay, so here's how it works. There are basically 4 steps. Step 1, you question objective truth. That means asking, hey, who decided this was true, and what was their motive? Step 2 is to look for who's being left out. Which voices aren't being heard in this conversation? Step 3, examine the power dynamics. How is this version of the truth helping someone stay in charge? And finally, step 4, you have to challenge the big picture forces, like the way social media algorithms are designed to make money from outrage that allow post-truth to flourish.
So, when we start using a framework like this, we can do more than just knock down individual lies. We can actually start to reclaim the entire conversation on a much, much deeper level. Because here's the real goal. It's to get out of that simple true or false game. The most powerful way to fight post-truth isn't just to have better facts. It's to develop a really smart understanding of how truth, power, and knowledge are all tangled up together. It means we have to start asking better questions. Whose knowledge is being valued here? Who gets to have a platform? And who really benefits from this specific version of the truth?
And that really brings us to the final question, one for all of us to think about. We're living in this swirling storm of competing stories. How do we choose which truths are solid enough to build a future on? Navigating this isn't easy. It demands that we become more than just passive consumers of information. It asks us to become critical investigators of the stories that shape our world. The only question left is, are we up for it?